All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to hop into the slides here, the notes that I wanted to cover. There it is. All right. So, all right. So basically what I'm going to do is go over everything that you need to know as far as the program is concerned, as far as licensure and stuff like that. All right. So the basics about the program. So full-time, normal times, program takes 2 semesters. And I can't recall your background. Do you have a funeral home? Are you at a funeral home? Do you have the prereqs time?
Yeah, I work at a funeral home. I've been there 27 years. I have a bachelor's degree in organizational management from Nyack College.
Okay.
And I went to McAllister for 2 semesters.
Okay. I'll pull your stuff up here. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. Since it is just you and I can make that.
I took the biology over the summer, the bio 106.
Okay, good.
But I didn't get a chance to do. Chemistry was my next prerequisite. I wasn't able to do the chemistry though.
Okay, I see that. So it's just the chem. So we'll talk about what you want to take in the fall. You know, it's if it's a situation where you're looking to go full time. Are you looking to go full time or part time?
I'm gonna have to do full time because I work full time.
Okay.
And the full time is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays 10 to 3, right?
Well, it runs the gamut, and
Yeah.
I'll show you the slides on that here. All right, so in the fall, we will be back on campus. We were distanced for about 1.5 years. Right now, they're saying masks will be required, and I don't know if vaccines will be required. I know Governor Murphy was going to make some sort of an announcement today, and I haven't followed the news today. I meant to look into that, but I just didn't get a chance to look it up. I hope they're not. I mean, full disclosure, I'm not vaccinated. I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any stretch, but I just, you know, I'd just rather, you know, I'd rather get COVID than get that vaccine. So, you know, but they are requiring masks. I know that my wife was following a story where they were saying that all faculty would have to be vaccinated. That was what the governor was going to do. So I have no idea. We're still in a cloud of question about the fall. We're supposed to be back on campus. That's what we're shooting for. We'll see where it goes. So, if we're looking at your schedule and you still need chemistry, now this is the full-time day schedule, right? So all of our classes are prior to the lockdown and all that stuff, all of our classes are hybrid, meaning that half of the class is put online and half of the class is in the classroom. And what this means in practice is what used to be a 3-hour class is now 1.5 hours. So it used to be like, you know, we would go through all these additional units in class. We take half of the units for a course, we drop them online, and then the other half we do in the classroom. It works out good. We do a very brief run through on those units, on those Blackboard modules. There's a module, you can do readings with it. We've gotten a little more savvy with it because of the whole lockdown, where I know in particular with my intro class, when I teach embalming 1 or embalming 2, for example, I can make a much longer video to go along with that, similar to this, and pop that on there. So even if you wanted to have the whole lecture that we used to have, you can sort of go and watch it, or you can just do the module. Mondays we're there. What this allows us to do, when I was a student, we were there like 9 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. What this allows us to do is Monday, like noon to 3, Wednesday, 10 to 4, 10 to 5. And I think this is what we'll harp in here to switch around. If we can get chemistry in the fall for you, because basically what happens is we put so much credit in that we max out on credit. We're at 18 credits per semester. That's a lot. School doesn't allow us to go more than that. So if you drop the chemistry 100 or chem 106 into the fall semester, what you can do is we'll probably drop lab or field experience from the course schedule for the fall. That'll give us room to put chemistry in somewhere, and you can decide what chemistry you want to take and when you want to take it, but that'll keep us at that 18 credit mark. Right now, what we can do as a result of that is, you know, and you'll finish out with the path and principles on Friday. Now that means in the spring, when we look at the spring, you have an option here, because you can either put in the field experience or lab on Wednesday afternoon, or you can just drop that all together and wait until the summer and take both of them, because both of them are offered on during the summer on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings. So the way that essentially it'll work, let's say you take field experience in the spring, right? Because these are sister classes. It's embalming lab is exactly what you would think it is. We go to a lab, we embalm bodies. Field experience is the other half of that. It's everything that a funeral director does, ranging, directing, all of that stuff, right? But both of these classes have external elements to them. They both have clinical work that has to be done. That means so many embalmings, so many sets of funeral arrangements, so many hours of work at the funeral home, and embalming observation, that type of a thing. So both of these are offered in the summer. If you want, you can take one in the spring, or you can take them both in the summer if you want. It's up to you, because of the way that we'll have to stack the classes, you'll get stuck taking one summer class, and not the end of the world. Instead of wrapping up in May, you'll wrap up in August. Not a big deal. But if you want a lighter schedule in the spring, again, not a bad idea, because a lot of hard classes in the spring, restorative art, embalming too, that type of thing. May not be a bad idea to just drop both in the summer, because the timeline will be exactly the same whether you take one in the spring and one in the summer, or if you take both in the summer. But that's something we'll talk about as we go through the program. But I just need you to find a chemistry class to hop into, so we can get I need those prereqs done in the first semester. Otherwise, they come back to haunt us, and I've seen it really come out in bad ways in the past.
Okay.
So if you look at this, and again, this is for an evening program that I have. It's based starting in the spring, really. But if you look at that in the summer, field experience on Tuesday evening, lab is on Wednesday evenings. So we'll snag one or two of these classes to help you wrap out in time. Okay.
So this is the one that would be most interested, because I work full time. Could you go back to that slide? Okay.
Sure. Would you rather do the evening courses?
Yeah, I would have to, because I'm at work during the day.
Oh, okay. Well, you said full time. I thought you were just trying to knock it out full time. Okay, and then you know what?
I wish I could.
That's fine. That's fine. You know what? This works even better, because in the fall, what we can do is we can put you into micro on Monday, and on Thursday, intro to funeral service. You drop chemistry in there somewhere, or on, whatever, chemistry, and you can take it online, you can take it in the classroom, whatever you want to do. This lines us up in a way that, so you take micro and intro on in the fall. Then in the spring, we'll really open it up here. And on Mondays, you can take pathology and law, embalming, and principles on Tuesday. And then we'll look to the summer to knock these three classes out: counseling, field experience, and embalming lab. And then we'll wrap in the fall with restorative art, embalming 2, and management. You have laws, rules, and regs on Wednesday. I think we're going to keep this course distance. This is the only course I think we're going to keep distance, like, permanently. It's a 1-credit class. It preps you for the jurisprudence exam. But this is really conducive to that style of teaching. Anyway, that's only for the first 7 weeks of the semester, and then you'll wrap in December instead of August. So that's sort of why we designed this particular program, just because there are times when you said, I thought you wanted to go full time. I thought it was strange too. You're like, I want to go full time because I have to work full time. I was like, okay, that's a little strange. But I thought maybe you just wanted to knock it out super fast.
Yeah, no, I wish I could.
I got you. Not a problem. That's why we have this option. And this is a nice, clean way to get through it.
So you're saying December of 2022, if I push all the way through, I should be done by December of 2022.
Exactly.
Because none of these other classes, like the funeral service, because I see it's only 2 to 3 weeks, it says there. It meets.
No. This only meets every 2 to 3 weeks. Counseling.
Oh.
Yeah. Prior to the lockdown, counseling was one of the classes that we were experimenting with as far as working with distance education. Okay. And I think in probably 2 or 3 years, we'll probably have a full distance education program set up, but it takes years to get approvals on these things. But this is the one that we were experimenting with, and then everything got shut down in 2020. So just whatever, right? We just couldn't do it. But yeah, that only meets every other 2 to 3 weeks. And Professor Algis, I think, was experimenting a little bit more with online platforms and stuff like that for that particular class. Okay. So on Mondays in the summer, and I know it says 2021, it'll be exactly the same. It's just a pain to change these images and slides.
Gotcha.
So I just left it as it was for the years. So we'll, but that one meets every 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah, this is most likely your fastest way through, especially if your days are tied up with work. Just because this will leave Yeah, I don't know how. Are you working at the funeral home during the day? Or are you working somewhere else
No, I'm
during
in
the
the
day?
school, but I work
Okay.
at a funeral. We do about 500 or 600 cases a year, so I know
Wow.
I'm not going to have problem with the cases and the arrangements and the embalmings.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. I remember meeting with you. I met with you at the school. I think we were Zooming and you were at the school, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if what funeral home do you work for? Because that's a
Bragg, Carney Bragg.
okay, that's a huge caseload. So that's a wonderful opportunity. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So like I said, you won't have to be registered with the state. All right, now are you in PA or New Jersey?
I'm in New Jersey.
Okay, so here's what I would recommend doing, and this will be slides that we'll come up with in a bit. I would recommend getting registered with the state as soon as possible. I don't know if you're registered now, but the sooner you can get registered, the better it is in the long run because
Okay.
they give you 2 years by default. Now, because you have
Right.
a bachelor's, they'll drop that down to a 1 year minimum,
Okay.
but you can take up to 3 years if need be. Now, if you're doing a
Okay.
place, working in a place on 500 a year, then you don't need to worry about getting the numbers.
Right.
But there's that clock that you have to deal with the state, and so
Hmm.
if once you get everything filed, anything outside of 12 months, you'll be able to do the final licensing exam and be on your way. So the sooner you can get registered, the better. We'll need you registered legally by the summer of next year because you
Okay.
can't even go into the lab without being registered. We are because we embalm there. The state of New Jersey considers us a mortuary, and we have to go by all the same things that every other funeral home goes by, meaning that like I can't just take somebody into a local funeral home, go into a prep room type deal.
Hmm.
You need to be registered, and they allow us to do so in that capacity. So
Okay.
that's the deadline for it, but I would say get registered sooner rather than later, just so you can start that clock ticking.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, like when I was at McAllister, I was registered. I did all my cases and everything, but I just couldn't. I couldn't grasp that the chemistry teacher we had. I just couldn't grasp it with her.
That's
And
a
the other
bummer.
lady.
How much of the program did you finish at McAllister's?
I had embalming 2 to complete, and I did the first 2 semesters. The first two, it was 3 portions. And with them, they said that my credits are still there. It would take me a year to finish, but they're so expensive. Their pricing is ridiculous.
It is super
So,
expensive.
yeah,
And to give you an idea, and I think, and I have heard numbers, and again, I'm not throwing stones. Funeral service education is sort of the same way that funeral service is. You know how you know all of your competitors,
right,
and you tend to be friends with many of them. It's
right.
like that in funeral service education. So we all know each other and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But I have heard McAllister is somewhere close to 45, 50,000 to finish the
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
It's wild, man. It's so our program, and this is something I'll get to, so I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but it's all right. Are you familiar with the chargeback program?
Yes.
Good, good, good. So if you file that each semester, the total to get through it should be about 6,500.
Mhm.
So it's considerably less
Oh
expensive,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and it's the same. It's the same curriculum. It's this. The curriculum comes down to us from the American Board of Funeral Service Education. It's the same
Mhm.
exact curriculum, but yeah, it's much more expensive up there. And again, not throwing stones at the folks up
Yeah.
McAllister. So
It's so when they told me what it was God said, this is totally ridiculous. No, I have actually the person that I'm considering to be my to do
you're a
my
preceptor.
yeah, she's a graduate of Mercer and she's on the state board right now.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good,
So
good. What's her
mhm.
name?
Eleanor Rudolph.
Okay, before my time, probably Rob Smith was still here, but that's good. That's very, very good. So,
Yeah, she's on the board now.
all right. So, a
Mhm.
couple of things. Funeral Service Program Handbook. Now, that's in those links. That link that I dropped up there, that Google Doc, that is something by accrediting standards we had to provide to you. It's stuff that we'll go through today, but it tells you everything you ever wanted to know about the program. Everybody was asking me 3 different degrees. What are the different degrees? There's a prep degree, which does not, you don't need to be worried about that. If you had 0 credit to satisfy the state's requirement of 60 credits, we'd say, hey, maybe do the prep degree, get the 60 credits and get an associate's in business, and then
Okay.
move into the funeral service program. Everybody does the same classes with us. Those classes I showed you earlier. Now, if we can pull from your academic background, and it doesn't make any difference in your situation because you already have a bachelor's, but if we can pull from your academic background a math, a gen ed, or a global perspective, like an ethics class or a language or philosophy or something like that, um, then you'll qualify to also get the associate's degree. Not that you need another degree, but it doesn't cost you anything more. It's just
Right.
it's an extra diploma to hang on the wall.
Right.
But the
Right.
certificate is what you need to practice in the state.
Okay.
Um, New Jersey and PA requirements. So like I said earlier, both require those 60 college credits prior to funeral service education. They don't care what it is, but you have to prove it to them through the Department of Education. And there's an odd thing that has to be filled out. In New Jersey, they issue what's called an academic qualifying certificate, an AQC. They often refer to this as an MQC, a mortuary qualifying certificate. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. They just gave it two names for some reason. So this has to be completed before the practical exam can be scheduled. So when you're looking at testing, and we'll talk about testing in a minute, but this has to be done. And they don't, the weird thing is you send off your transcripts to the Department of Education, something we can't do. It just is proving those 60 credits prior to funeral service education. They don't provide anything to you. They don't send you a confirmation. They just send something to the state board going, oh yeah, they have the 60 credits. It's weird, but
Okay.
and we always mention this because we don't want you to get to the end and then go, oh, geez, what the hell? Like I've had students do this. It can take up to 6 months for them to issue this thing, and they won't let you take the practical exam. Without, they'll let you do everything else. So you could theoretically complete the schooling, the internship, 75, 75, and 25, the national board, the state board, and be right there ready to get licensed. And they go, no, we don't have that. And then you're stuck waiting months for this thing to get issued. Okay. So this is something that is really good at the forefront, right when you get issued right when you get registered as an intern, make sure to look into this. All right, so the prerequisites, I just looked it over. Looks like you have everything you need. Is it no, everything but the chem, and we'll work the chem into the fall. All right, so licensing requirements you'll be concerned with. The internship, like I said, 2 years by default. So when your card, actually they're not issuing physical cards anymore, but when it is initially issued, you're registered as an intern, it would be 2 years. Now, once they receive that AQC, MQC, they will drop that down to a 1 year minimum. If you need more time, they'll happily give you a third year. You get close to the end of that third year, you send them a letter going, look, I need a third year. They go, great, done. During that time, as soon as you're registered, and this is another reason to get it done sooner rather than later, you start sending in monthly reports, 75 funerals, 75 embalmings, 25 sets of funeral arrangements by the end. Now, if you hit, and this happened to me when I was an intern, I hit it, I'd say 3/4 of the way through, I had those numbers. You don't have to send them reports anymore. At least you don't have to account for it, but you're still supposed to send them reports. So I would just zero it out and go, yeah, I didn't do anything this month, mailed into them. That's fine. They want you to send that report in every month. Okay. Now, testing, as soon as you're done the schooling, like you hand in your last paper, or do your last test or whatever, right? And we know that you've passed everything and you're good to go. Even before graduation, you'll get an email from me explaining, here's what you need to do, A, B, C, and D. Send me your social security number and I'll get you cleared for it. And I send your social off to the conference, quote unquote, the conference. That's the International Conference of Funeral Service Examining Boards. We have nothing to do with the national. I've written questions for it. I volunteered to write questions for it just to learn more about it. It's based out of Arkansas. Like I said, they're very, very secretive about the questions on. There was that whole blow up at McAllister that happened back in 2013. That was a nightmare. And ever since then, it's been crazy, man. But anyway, we prep you for it. And as soon as you're done everything, we'll clear you for it. Like you'll get an email from me, you email me back. I send your info over to the conference. You're cleared to take this thing in 24 to 48 hours later. We don't give it. It's given by the Pearson VUE testing centers, and they're all over the place. Okay. So that's something you just schedule on your own. You can take the arts and the sciences on separate days, which I advise doing. I think it's a good idea to not have both in the same settings, but everybody's different, you know. The second test, and again, these are all independent of each other. The second test is the jurisprudence exam. Now, that's given by the state board. We release your information over to the state. And we say, okay, this person has finished everything. They are ready to go. And they'll send you an application. You send it in. Now, the test is given at Mercer County College. But again, we have nothing to do with it. It's given by our testing center. It just happens to be the college is geographically centered in the state. So they have a contract with the college. And it's given by our testing center. It's given 3 times a year. So whenever you wrap, if you wrap in December, there'll be one in an offering in February. If you wrapped in May, there's one in July. If you wrapped in August, there's one in October. So whenever you wrap up the program, there's always one right after it. Okay. We prep you for that. There was a specific class for it. And I also give a review for it prior to it, like 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. And it's free. It's open to everyone. It's just one of those deals where it's most likely going to be in this format. But, you know, it's something that I highly recommend going to, because we've had a pretty good success rate on that. But once you're done everything else, right, you're done the schooling, you're done the 75, 75, and 25, you're done the national JP exam. Once you're done everything else, you can then register for the practical exam. And that's when they send somebody from the state board to the funeral home to watch you embalm someone. That's probably the most stressful of the tests. But I think it's the easiest. If you've done the 75 plus, then you're normally in good shape to do that. PA won't get into, Delaware won't get into. Okay, so the questions. Here's things you're going to pop up with in the when you go to get registered as an intern. Please certify under penalty of perjury the following. Do you currently have child support obligation? Have you failed to respond to a subpoena related to either a paternity or child support proceeding? Are you subject of a child support related arrest warrant in accordance with NJSA, and answer a yes to any of these questions may result in denial of licensure. Furthermore, any false information, blah, 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 immediate revocation or suspension of license or certification. And it goes on. Have you ever been summoned, arrested, taken into custody, indicted, tried, charged with, admitted into pretrial intervention, or pled guilty to any violation of law, ordinance, felony, misdemeanor, disorderly persons offense, New Jersey or any other state, et cetera, and so forth? Have you ever been convicted of any crime or offense under any circumstances? This includes, but is not limited to, a plea of guilty, non-volt, nolo contendere, no contest or finding of guilt by a judge or jury. If yes, provided blah, 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 conviction or release of parole or probation. So we mentioned this. I don't judge anyone, man, but I have had some weird stories over the years. I had a student one time. We don't want somebody who doesn't have an internship, say, to get started, and then they're halfway through the program, and then they find out for whatever reason they can't get licensed. And I had a student. It was a weird situation. He was a nice guy, really nice guy, smart, witty, like. He was one of our best students. He was like, I want to talk to you after class, if I could talk to you in your office. And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, I used to be a teacher. I was like, oh, I don't like where this is going. And he had slept with one of the students. Now the student was a senior. So it was, but I'm not condoning that. He was over 18, but I'm not condoning it. And I was like, I don't think it's going to happen, dude. I do not think that the state board is going to, and he went and made a plea to them and said, look, I paid my debt to society. What am I supposed to do? Work in a liquor store for the rest of my life? And they saw it his way. We had another student before my time here who had he had to register as a sex offender because, and it was a dumb charge. He was in college. He was drunk. He went streaking. And the DA threw the book at him and just wrote him up and they made him and he was embarrassed by it. So he hid it. Somehow the state board found out about it and they came to the school, took his file. They had all the information and they were like, yeah, he's never getting licensed. It's done. Like they were not going to get him licensed because it was fraud by omission was the way they viewed it, So again, we mentioned it. You seem like a stand-up guy. I doubt there's anything like this in the background, but I had a student who I would have never guessed it. She was such a lovely woman, and again, very good in class and everything else. She was like, "Yeah, I was involved in a double homicide." And I was like, "Oh my God, you can't make this stuff up." So we mentioned it at the outset as a just in case.
Okay.
I myself had to. What was I arrested for? Drunk in public or something. I was 19. Me and my dumb college roommate. You have to disclose it because God forbid 10 years down the road, let's say your competitor finds out somehow. You know what I mean? Like it's just best to just be honest with them. All right. So program policies and all this stuff is in the handbook. Grades have to be C or above, and a C for funeral service classes is 75 plus. We tag it at that because that's what the minimum is for the national board exam. Repeat, and again, I hope none of this affects you in any way. Repeating courses, you can repeat courses twice. If you have to do it a third time, you have to get departmental permission to do so.
Okay.
Meaning you have to go to the dean, and our old dean, Dr. Maddox, and great guy. He's the guy who actually hired me. When Dr. Maddox was there, he was the son of a funeral director, and he took it real seriously, man. He would drill students on this stuff, and good for him. He took a passion in the program. Incomplete grades. When you finish certain classes, lab and field experience, you may end up with an incomplete grade if you don't have all of the clinical work done. If you haven't done the embalmings and the observation, everything else, all the coursework is done, that's fine. But because of the sporadic nature of funeral service, the school allows us to grant an incomplete grade. And what happens is, let's say you're taking them over the summer, you get to October, or I'm sorry, to August, and you haven't finished the embalmings and everything else. You'll just get an incomplete grade. And then when you get that stuff done, we'll go back and change the grade. Now, they give us 1 semester to do this. So it has to be done in that semester. So assignments that are given to you in May, you have until December to do. But if we get to December, that grade flips from an I to an F, and it is damn near impossible to switch it back. So we just mentioned it now. It's all stuff to just consider for the future. Tests, there are really no makeup exams. Now, like, I'm not a monster on this. If I've had students, you work with students. I mean, the younger generation is just different than we were. I had a student one day who was like, I just didn't feel like taking it. I'm like, I'm not giving you a makeup exam. Like, you just didn't feel like taking it. Like, no. But I've had other students like, look, like, you know, like I had a flat tire. I had one last over the summer. It's like I had to take my kid to the hospital. I'm like, that's fine, not a problem. But you know, again, you seem closer in age to me, so you probably won't have this issue with you. Tests are not given for students' retention, but we do review them in class, meaning that I don't want to rewrite tests every semester. So the funeral industry is small enough. We don't want those tests out there in the general public.
Right.
So we review them in class, but then we collect them. Program completion, and this comes up all the time. I just had this with a student, again, a student that I really liked, but it was what it was. Due to the evolving nature of funeral service, the American Board of Funeral Service Education gives us 1.5 times to complete the program, meaning if you get started and you leave for some reason, it happens, life gets in the way. I've had students who got married or moved or had a kid or whatever, right? If you're gone for more than 3 years, when you return, you have to start at the beginning. You know, so again, hopefully none of this stuff will impact it, just stuff that we have to disclose. In the program, there's one elective, FUN 299 NBE prep. It's a capstone course at the end, the 1 credit course. It's recommended but not required. And this picks up when embalming 2 ends, because embalming 2 is a 2 credit 10-week course. This is a 1 credit 5-week course. So they overlap. So you're never in all of those classes at the same time. We highly recommend it, but it's not required, at least not yet. All right, the hepatitis B vaccination. Well, when you take lab and field experience, we will give you paperwork on this. We need to know that you know it exists. We don't care if you take it or not. That's on you. But by law, every funeral home, by federal law, every funeral home, when they take on an employee, they must make the Hep B vaccination available to them at no cost within 10 days. And we mention this because a lot of times funeral homes forget, like they legitimately forget. When I interned at an SCI funeral home, and SCI does everything by the book. And I heard about this in school and came back and asked, like, shit, yeah, we just completely forgot about that. Like it falls off the radar sometimes. So we need to know that you know that it exists. All right, registering with the state board. So this has to be done for taking 295 and 251, field experience and embalming lab. Again, I would say you have a funeral home, get registered sooner rather than later. It's a good thing to do. In New Jersey, you can use the embalmings and funeral arrangements and everything else, and funerals and everything else you do for both the funeral classes and for the state. So while you're taking lab, let's say lab, you have to do a total of 15. You have to do a total of 15 embalmings for both lab and field experience, right? You can still count those 15 toward the state of New Jersey. That's perfectly fine to do. So they don't have to be mutually exclusive. All right, so the AQC, or pre-professional educational certificate, this is how they prove that 60 credits prior to funeral service education. Now, the way that they do it is a little strange. Teacher certification information system online. I don't know why they do it through this, but you have to go to this website. You have to create a user ID and all that stuff, an account, and then you have to pay them. I think it's like $35, and you can print up a receipt of that and you mail that in with your transcript. Actually, I think they're doing it all digitally now. So you would have to sort of get that and email that to the Department of Education, and then get your school to send your transcripts prior. Now, you don't have to go crazy with this. Like, you don't have to send the transcripts if you're doing stuff at Mercer or whatever, because they don't care about that. They just care about hitting that magic 60 number, and in your case, 90. So if you did everything at the one school, just have that one transcript sent. You don't have to have anything else sent.
Okay.
It saves you the $5 or $10 or whatever it is that they charge you for getting the transcript sent. Like I said, they're just interested in getting you to that 90 credit mark. Things we'll go through in class, and again, if I had students starting these classes in the fall, it'd be one thing, but we'll talk about this in the summer. There'll be an application form, a Hep B survey, intern card we get off the website now, and then an inspection report. So let me go through these real quick. These are for field experience and for lab, where there's the clinical work. So one of the first things you'll get in that class when you take lab and field experience is this application for that, to take that class. And what this is an agreement between the funeral home and the school that allows us to come out and do the observation and to do the, for you to do the 15 embalmings and to do funerals and arrangements and everything else there. And for your preceptor to issue a grade on the work that you've done there. It's just an agreement between the two. The inspection of the funeral home will have to be done. Now, we always mention this because this is new. This has only been in the last 5 years or so. So a lot of times I've had funeral directors go, well, when I went through it, they didn't have to do this. And the same is true.
I was wondering, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's what happened was a couple of years ago. This is not for the school. This is not for the state. This is for the accreditor. This goes up to the American Board of Funeral Service Education. They were having issues in other parts of the country, areas with very little regulation. And there were students that were legitimately in dangerous environments. And I want to say, I think there was a case in Arkansas where they really didn't have any PPE. There was a case, I want to say in Missouri, maybe, where a student was working on a table where, again, you've got running water and there was live electrical wires hanging down out of the ceiling. It was just a bad scene. So they say this really doesn't impact us because it's New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware. We all have a lot of regulation that we have to meet. Other areas of the country are not like that. So what we do to satisfy the accreditor really doesn't apply to us. We've never come into a situation. I've never seen a funeral home that didn't have the proper safety equipment. We have a student fill this out, and then we make an appointment with the funeral home, and we have whoever the field supervisor is come out and take a 5-minute walk through the funeral home. It's a very painless thing. It's not a spot inspection. We don't sneak up on them. We call, schedule an appointment, and all we're doing is ratifying this information. We walk in, we go, okay, great. We have to sign off on a form saying we were there. And like I said, we're in and out in 5 minutes. So but it's something we ask that you mention to your preceptor because we don't want to sneak up on them. I had a funeral director screaming at me a couple of years ago while I was driving to a funeral home saying, you can't come in here and inspect it. You don't represent the state. And we were in PA at the time. And I got there and I sat down with him. I explained it to him and he was like, oh, okay, I got you. And then we sat and we had a very lovely conversation for the next hour. So yeah, we don't want to sneak up on funeral homes with it.
Okay.
This is the Hep B form that we'll have you fill out. I sort of have that in there too. Now, scholarships, there's a ton of scholarships out there. And this is all in that packet and that link that you click it. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. Any funeral service organization that exists out there, whether that be the New Jersey State Funeral Directors Association, the National Funeral Directors Association, the National, the NFDMA, National Funeral Directors and Morticians Association, Order of the Good, OGR, Order of the Good Rule, or Golden Rule, excuse me. Any one of them, they all have money that they give away. And the number one complaint I get from these groups is they don't get enough applicants.
Right.
There's so many times that they just don't get any applications. When I was in school, the NFDMA in particular, a student that I was in class with reached out to them because he was doing a project about them. And they said, we have this scholarship. Nobody's applied for it in 6 years. If you want it, and he sent in an application, you got $9 grand or something, which was well more than it cost to get through the program back in those days. This was 2001, So they're out there. This is not an exhaustive list, but we ask you to look into them. And if there is anything you need from us, feel free, man. I'm happy to write a letter. If we like to see you guys get this money,
Okay.
and so anything we can do to help, any way we can support you in it, let us know. We're more than happy to. If you go to the school's website, whatever class you're taking, let's say in the fall, you're taking Bio 215 and FUN 206, along with the chemistry class. If you put in FUN 206, it's Intro to Funeral Service, it'll bring up the syllabus. You can go to that. It'll tell you the books that you need. Here's a full list of all the books that are used in the program. You don't have to buy them from us. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them on eBay. I saw on Embalmers Who Care, which is a Facebook page that has 15,000 members on it now. I've seen people selling their books on there. Perfectly fine to do. You don't have to get them from us. I'm sure the school wouldn't want me. I'm sure the bookstore would not want me to say that, but you're perfect.
I rented mine for the Bio 106.
Okay. Okay. And that's not a bad idea. And with renting, it's good with the prerequisites. Certain classes, I think you should keep them
Right.
at least until you're done the national, like embalming, restorative art, things like that.
Right.
Now there are certain books in here. If you have questions, reach out to us. There's like the History of American Funeral Directing. This book was first written in 1957. And I have a student, a previous student that found me a second edition from 1959. Not a lot has changed. So if you find one from 1993 or whatever, fine. Knock yourself out. It's
Right.
fine.
Right.
Now, funeral directing, or I'm sorry, the embalming history, theory, and practice. We're up to the 5th edition. They're working on the 6th. We normally say don't go past the 3rd edition on that one. Like if you find one that's a 4th edition or a 3rd, it's normally okay. The page numbers may not line up, but you're normally 2 or 3 pages off from where you need to be. Like we're looking at an assignment, it says turn to page 354. It may be 2 pages, whatever, it's fine.
Right.
At the end of the world. But like I said, if you have questions about it, reach out to us. But other ones, like I said, you can definitely get an older version of it. There's one on here. Why am I not seeing it? One of the law books, or I'm sorry, sociology for funeral service is like it's like a 40-page thing. Like it'd be worth your time to just take it out of the library and go photocopy it. It's
okay.
It's one of those deals. We try and find ways to save you money where we can. And the last thing on here is the anatomical guide to limits. Now, we include these just because I've had students in the past that really want to get ahead. They really want to start studying right away. I wish they did not include these in the curriculum, but they do. These you can promptly forget as soon as you're done the testing. You'll never use these again afterwards. Now, what they are, again, it comes down from the American board. These are directions as to how and where you can raise certain vessels, all the vessels used for embalming. So common carotid, for example, is posterior to the medial border of the sternocleidomastoidus. Sternocleidomastoidus is right in here. So what it does is it puts you right in this area. An anatomical limit is the top and the bottom of where you can raise that vessel. So anatomical guide, AG, anatomical limit. The right sternoclavicular articulation to the superior border of the thyroid cartilage, which basically puts you in this area. And again, you're not going to get a pop quiz on these day one. We just include them because it's one of the more difficult things of the curriculum.
Okay.
Now, the linear guide on something like this, LG linear guide, is if you were to draw an invisible line over top of it, and the sternoclavicular articulation to the anterior surface of the earlobe. And this is actually a very handy trick to use. If you put your hand like this up to the earlobe, down to the where your sternum and your clavicle meets, that's right where you're going to find the carotid every time. These are included when you take embalming 1, embalming 2, restorative art, and embalming lab. That's when we'll need these. So you don't need to break these out and start studying them right away, but we include them just because it's one of the more difficult parts of the curriculum. When you take those particular classes, what I'll do is I share a Word document of it. And this is at least the way I learned them is you take them, you cut the bigger words, sternocleidomastoidus, you drop it into Google, it'll give you an image of it. For me, I'm a real visual learner. And I created a study guide that way. But like I said, this is not something you're going to have to deal with semester 1. But we include it just because it is such a pain in the rear as far as testing is concerned. This is stuff that's going to pop up in the national board exam, for example.
Okay.
Oh, and these are older stats, but if you go to our website, and actually we're going to update them as soon as we get back on campus. We haven't been on campus since March of 2020, and we're projected to be back August 30th. We have to post our 3-year passing rates and employment rates and all that other stuff. We have pretty good passing rates. The national board exam, the national passing rate on it last year was like 61%, I want to say. It was not good, at least as far as the sciences are concerned. That's not us, it's nationally. So we've always held a pretty good passing rate on that. I want to say with the arts, it was something like, I should know these numbers, I just don't remember them off the top of my head, something like 71% of people nationally passed it. We've held a consistently stronger than the national rate for the past decade, at least. So we had to publish all that stuff. But again, I always put that in there as a disclosure because I had a vice president of the college once who said, your passing rates are not that great. And I was like, are you kidding me? Look at the national rates. And like, oh, okay. The national board exam is really creepy. They have all this metadata on each question. So if a question performs too well, and even if it performs too well in a certain geographical region, like, oh, it's too many people are getting this question correct in Kansas or something, they'll tinker with the wording and get that performance down. Like it's batty what they do with this stuff. This test should not be as difficult as it is. If you look at most licensing exams, the bar or something like that, the passing rates are much higher than they are for the national board exam. But it's just, like I said, they went bonkers after 2013 with the whole McAllister thing, and it's bad. So we do everything we can to prep you for it, and like I said, we have a pretty good track record on that. But if you go to our website, you can see the current numbers on that. I just haven't updated it because, like I said, it's a pain to change the slides on these. I think that's it. So yeah, I think you're in good shape. When you're ready, here's what I'd say to do. Are you looking to take the chemistry at Mercer or somewhere else?
Well, I wanted to take it this summer. I could find it nowhere without a lab. That was my issue. That's why I didn't take it. Yeah, I guess I would have to take it at Mercer. I would love to take it somewhere else and not have to take that drive, because I guess I'm about an hour away.
Well, let's take a look and see. I mean, you are welcome to take it locally if you want to take it up in your area. Let me get a screen up real quick and we'll take a quick look and see what we can find. We might be able to find everything you need right now. 1 second here. So in any normal time, if you just go to the school's website, actually, I'll stop recording at this point because this is all stuff that we probably don't need to